How to discover my strengths and weaknesses. Thanks for joining me here. My name's Jason Hewlett, and I love talking about this subject. I've been talking about it for over 20 years in corporate presentations, education, etc. all around the world. And so I'm so pleased that you've joined me today. I have a lot to say about it, and you're going to thoroughly enjoy this video today. So coming from the place of being a speaker and a performer, I want to tell you first of all that, usually I talk about this in the sense of speakers, performers, those types of things. But, I want to talk to you today specifically about the importance of knowing what your weaknesses are and embracing your strengths. You see, a lot of the time we might think to ourselves, well, I'm no good at anything, and even though people probably have told you you are. And so the importance of realizing that you have something great about you is what this video is about. And it is important to understand the difference between the weaknesses and the strengths, but we want to lean into the strengths. So let's first talk about the importance of self-discovery. And when we talk about self-discovery, we're looking obviously for our talents, our gifts, that which makes us uniquely who we are. Now, you might think to yourself, I don't have any talents. Unfortunately, even when I am speaking to great leaders of this world, they might even say to themselves, well, I'm not that good at that much. And it's almost ridiculous to hear it because they're leading the world at what they do. We so often don't think about the greatness that we have within us. But if we can discover those things that make us who we are, then we can start to build upon the foundation that creates our career, that creates our wonderful life, how we can make a difference in the community and in the world overall. One of my favorite examples of this is a guy named Abraham Lincoln. Did you know that he failed at elections over and over again? In fact, he lost his business twice and he lost 8 elections. He was the 16th president of the United States. And how did that happen? Some people think it's because he failed enough until he succeeded. I like to think that here was a guy who knew exactly what he was meant to do. He believed that he had talents, gifts, skills, strengths that could be skills turned into expertise that would then eventually bless the world. And he did. He's considered by most the greatest president the United States has ever had. And even though he was considered the greatest president we've ever had, he also realized that he had lots of weaknesses. He wasn't good at certain things. He was clumsy. He was too tall. He would hit his head on the doorway. He had things going against him. In fact, even his own dad wasn't approving of Abraham Lincoln's efforts to read and learn. He wanted a son who worked hard outside and doing manual labor. But Lincoln's stepmom, she encouraged him in the reading side. She saw something greater in him. And so a lot of the time it takes a mentor. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But I want you to think about what you've identified for yourself are some of your gifts, talents, and strengths. The best way I know how to teach this is through the ICM process. If you've ever watched one of my videos or one of my signature move speeches, then you probably have heard me talk about this. The ICM process can absolutely transform the way you live your life, and it will help you to realize all of your potential. In my opinion, this is one of the greatest things you can do for yourself, and it is so simple, it is quick and easy, it's awesome. So here's what you need to do first. Please go to icmprocess.com. I want you to download that sheet there, and we're going to talk about what ICM stands for: identify, clarify, magnify. So first, let's talk about the first of identify. Now, I usually take people through this process in about a half an hour in a quick version of this. Sometimes I'll do half-day or full-day workshops with leaders, teams, corporations. I'd love to come do one where you're at if you'd like, but I want you to know that we're going to do this in under 10 minutes here today. So let's talk about first identify. When it comes to identifying our gifts and talents, I like to challenge people not to pinpoint one gift or one talent. I want to force you to try to write down 100. 100 may seem insane, but I'm just telling you, you need to go for way more than 5, way more than 10. Go for 100. Then I want you to circle the ones that really mean the most to you, and then come up with your top 10 list. When I first did this, I identified for myself that I'm an artist, I'm an entertainer, I'm a speaker, I'm a dad. Very simple words, but things that matter to me. And that's when we go into step 2, which is clarify. In step 2, clarify is more of a refining process, where identify step 1 is more of the discovery process. So with step 2, clarify, clarify, we're going to refine this now. We're going to set aside our identify list that we identified ourselves, and now I'm going to ask you to clarify with others whom you trust to help you see what you're great at. Now, you're going to ask your family, friends, coworkers, clients, people you trust. All you need to do is send a quick text and say, hey, I'm doing an assessment. I'm curious, what do you think are my gifts, talents, and signature moves? See what they say. It'll create for you a list of words that you've never heard or considered for yourself, but that other people see in you that you don't see in yourself. That means that they're clarifying what you've yet to identify. That's a beautiful thing. That's a major part of this process. I hope that as you receive those texts, you'll also do the same back to the person who sent it to you. Help them clarify for themselves. And then maybe you can send them to icmprocess.com so that they can go through this themselves and go and teach and share it as well. Now we're rolling into Magnify. When it comes to step 3 of Magnify, Magnify is the promise. When we identify what we've got and we clarify with others that it matters, now we can magnify our signature moves around the world and share that which only we can. I like to say that once we have magnified it, that means that we're keeping the promise to share it, to own it. I'm going to own what I've got. I'm going to leverage it. I'm going to use it in every situation I can. And so if I understand that my signature moves are making people laugh, I'm not going to hide that from anybody. I'm going to share that with people, and I'm going to do anything I can, whether it's in a text, an email, or an interaction with somebody else to make them smile. For example, if I go to a restaurant and I want to share my signature moves with somebody, I might say something like, hey, can I have some lettuce? And then they're like, what just happened? And then they laugh because I wiggled my nose. Now that's part of my signature move promise to magnify my gifts. And then they laugh. They give me a free meal. It's a wonderful thing. Now you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I don't have that talent Jason just showed. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. You have talents I don't have. I have talents you don't want. I want you to realize that. Your signature moves matter. And that's why you need to discover them. Those are your strengths. Let's talk about weaknesses, because we all have them. I mean, hey, I bite my fingernails. I wake up late sometimes. We all have those weaknesses. You have some too. That's okay. I want you to think about the weaknesses of the famous people. Let's talk about Walt Disney, for example. I mean, Walt Disney, he was a failed artist. He couldn't even keep a job. And then eventually he was able to create, well, Disneyland, Disney World. Walt Disney, I mean, heavens, he's Walt Disney, but he started out failing. Eventually it led to his strengths and his greatness because he continued to chop away at it. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds that have ever been. He failed math when he was in grade school. I mean, everybody knows this story. But then he goes on and discovers the theory of relativity. So he discovered that even in his weaknesses, he could turn those into great strengths just by focusing on something in particular. And through your focus, through discovering your signature moves, you can keep your promise. Let me share one more example of somebody you may not know, but if you are friends with me, maybe you know her. Her name is Lita Green. Now, Lita Green started out as somebody who had a very rough childhood. She was abused. She had extremely hard circumstances around her life. The reason I'm sharing her example is because she took what could be perceived as a great weakness and what she may have thought was a weakness at first. And now she teaches self-confidence and empowerment to women. And she is the essence of hotness. That's the name of her book. Embrace their inner hotness. When you think about your inner hotness, and I want you to think about it in terms of what makes you awesome. I think about Lita Green. If you go to litagreen.com, I hope that you're inspired by her great story, because embracing your inner hotness is what it's about. It's about discovering your signature moves, sharing that which makes you uniquely who you are. She had some challenging moments as a youth, but has come out stronger because she discovered her signature moves. I hope that as you've watched this video, you might put a thumbs up, and if you want to put in the comments some of your favorite speakers or favorite signature moves you've seen of other speakers, I would love that. But what I'd like the very most is if you'll please go to icmprocess.com. Check out that worksheet. It will change your life. I look forward to helping you as you discover even greater how to take your weaknesses and how to turn them into strengths and your signature moves to live the promise.